welcome everybody and thank you for joining us for today's session. My name is Lisa Desoy. I'm Head of Skills at the Mauritius Africa FinTech Hub, and I'd like to welcome you all to today's session on digital transformation in mobile intelligent banking. Before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping notices. I'm sure everybody is very familiar with the Zoom platform at this point. But just in case you're not, we do encourage you to submit your questions to today's speaker. And you can do that by using the Q&A function, which you will find at the bottom of your Zoom interface. So just click on there and type in your question, and we will be addressing questions at the end of today's session. Okay, so without further ado, I would like to introduce today's speaker. Today we are joined by Mr. Chen Zhentao, who is the Director at the FSI for Southern African region at Huawei. Mr. Zhentao has more than 20 years working experience, and a lot of that has been in the IT field. He has many years of experience from different industries, including financial services, with a focus on IT strategy, enterprise architecture, data center technology operation, cloud computing, and systems implementation. Today, he's joining us to talk about digital transformation in intelligent banking. And I'd like to welcome you to today's session, Chen. Thank you for joining us.
And thank you, Lisa. Actually, I'm not sure, should I share my screen now? Or...
Yep, you can
okay.
share your screen now, please, Sue. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so my screen is good? And my voice?
Yep. Yes, we can see you and we can hear you well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Actually, before my session, I just want to give a very brief introduction of myself. So my name is Chen. I have over 20 years experience, especially focused on the banking industry. And from recent 2 years, I transferred from China to this region, and now my base location is Johannesburg in South Africa. So today is really my great honor here to share something. And my topic today is digital transformation to mobile intelligent banking. Basically, I have two different topics for today. So the first topic is about the trend and practices, especially for the banking industry. And for all the trend and the practices, what I share today is just something real. It's just on the ground, not something just we're talking in the cloud or something. And the second part is about Huawei's capabilities and our FSI solutions. So that is how and what Huawei we've done to help our customers, especially for our banking customers, how to help them to achieve the success of the digital transformation. Okay, so the first slide I just share here is about that the kind of new trend of the customer behavior, especially for the current very new normal, especially under the COVID, right? So basically, it's very clear that two directions are very clear. The first one is that there's a lot of kind of new players, like new fintechs, they are coming, and I think some very big giant like in China, Alipay, Tencent, and actually the 2 years, the first day when I was here, I think for the whole region, it's really amazing. A lot of fintech companies, they are here. Actually, they give a kind of big pressure to the traditional business of the banks. So this is one direction and one point. And the second point is, as I mentioned earlier, that so currently, so this is new normal of epidemic, right? So the customers, the bank's customers, actually, they have no choice. They are adapt to engage with the banks online, right? This is a kind of big change for the customer behavior. And based on the two different kind of affection, it's quite clear that for the banks, when they when they do something different, when they do something like digital transformation, and the customer centric was mobile application is the first choice and a very top priority for the banks. That is, based on such kind of new infection, more and more banks, they just want to provide the mobile-based services. And such kind of mobile services is quite interesting. It's totally different with just several years when we talk about like a mobile service. Because nowadays, if you look at something for mobile service, the two different kind of service from the banks. The first one is that the traditional banking service, like a saving, right? Like a loan. It's kind of traditional banking service just based on the mobile platform of the banks. This is the first type. And the second type is that more and more banks, when they build their mobile platform, actually they just want to involve third-party service, like the service from other third party, like traveling, right? Like kind of restaurant, like insurance or something from other industry. They also want their customers enjoy the services from other third party. This is something like we always call like banking as a platform, open banking or something like that. And for this slide, I just want to share two very specific cases based on the trend of the mobile app. The first case is coming from one of the very innovative bank in China, which is a CMB. It's China Merchant Bank, which is one of the tier 2 bank, but very innovative. And if you look at the current the status of this bank, I just get some data from the annual report of this bank. It's quite interesting that for the recent years, the only KPI for this bank, they just focused on the MAU, which is mean monthly active user. That is, they only focused on the active users. There's something behind this is very clear, because this bank, their philosophy, they believe that the more users can enjoy their services, actually the more money the banks can earn. Quite simple and very direct, right? And the second data is also quite interesting here. This is based on all the scenario, because as I mentioned earlier, there are two very big different scenario. The first scenario is a finance scenario, like a payment, like a loan saving, right? And the second scenario is kind of, services from other parties. And based on the statistic, this bank, CMB, their non-traditional financial scenario, the ratio is around 72%. This is really amazing. That is, for most of the scenario actually from other third parties, not from the traditional banking services. This is CMB. And if you look at something like DBS, it's quite similar. This is also same thing, the same data from the annual report. And also similar, you can see some data like for the yearly, the published API for this bank is over 500, and the partners is over 400. It's really amazing. It's when we talk about the transformation of the bank, when we talk about the banks of today, it's totally different with several years ago. And if we just look at the evolution or the journey of the like channel services, obviously it can be divided into three different phases. And the first phase is kind of traditional channel with traditional services. It's a kind of very specific channel like branches, like internet or something. And there's a middle stage or middle phase is kind of like a mobile channel, but with like a traditional services, like a payment, loan, as I mentioned earlier. And the last one or the third one is kind of quite interesting. We call it mobile life. That is something like the banks, of course, they build their mobile app, but based on the mobile app, almost all the scenario related was, the daily life, not only the bank services, so the daily life scenario. So almost all the scenario you can enjoy from the platform. And such kind of mobile platform, we always call it like a super app. because this is a totally different. It was the mobile app several years ago, and then later I will share a little bit more information about this kind of super app. So this one is kind of super app from the CMB, as I mentioned, one of the most innovative bank in China. And why this bank, they just want to build their super app ecosystem. So one of the very important reasons behind this is before this, the CMB guys, they think their major business is kind of card transaction. But they think card transaction is not so good to move forward to the future, because based on their statistic, the transaction volume, the card transaction volume decreased, year by year, decreased by around 10%. Right? And the second thing of the card transaction is that most of the transactions is offline, it's not online. So based on this, they think the brilliant feature should be the mobile. So from the year 2014, so this bank just refreshed their strategy, then rename their new strategy as a mobile first. They just want to migrate or build everything based on their super app platform. And of course, they just want to migrate the card transaction to apps transaction. And of course, because banks, the business and the technology, they related very close. So for this bank, there are a lot of very cutting edge technology to support this, like a cloud, like a data. They refresh all their kind of platform to the cloud. They rebuild their big data platform to host many different kind of like anti-fraud scenario or something, risk control, such kind of applications. And based on current statistic, and I also want to share some very interesting data here. That is, so the mobile app, as I mentioned earlier, for just 1 month, the MAU is over 100 million. So the second data, very amazing, is that for all the traffic just from the mobile app, the ratio, you compare the mobile app transaction to all the other channels transaction, the ratio is around 92%. So the mobile app is a very, very important channel, digital channel, right? And the second one, and the third one is kind of 72% is non-financial services of the total MAU. It's quite amazing. It's something like practices, a new trend of the banks. And the second case I would like share here is what's going on in Kenya market. So actually, when we talk about like inclusive finance, there is something wrong if we do not touch Kenya. And if we look at the Kenya market, the number one, the first, fintech or something is definitely Safaricom. And if you look at what's going on for Safaricom, and also it can be divided into 3 different areas or 3 different phases. So the first phase is quite clear that Safaricom just want to build their mobile money platform. They just want to distribute their digital channel to the long tail users. This is the first stage. And of course, based on the mobile money, the retail user, they just can do some cash in, cash out, do some payment, such kind of very simple services provided by Safaricom. And the second phase is that based on the mobile money platform, Safaricom build their mobile payment as well as a payment gateway. So you can see they connect to different kind of ecosystem, like trading, right, shopping, something. And then the very interesting part is the third part. And the third part, we can call it mobile financial. This is something like based on the mobile money platform as well as mobile payment. Actually, the Safaricom just want to add more banking services, like a saving, like a loan here, add to their current existing platform. And because the Safaricom, they have no license, so they need help from banks. So they cooperate with top banks in Kenya, like NCBA as well as KCB. So just one thing I just want to highlight here, very interesting, is that for the top banks like KCB and NCB, when they cooperate with the Safaricom just for recent 3 or 4 years, you can see very amazing that because before they cooperated with Safaricom, their current account number is around 8 million. But after they cooperate with Safaricom, their account number doubled. That is, such kind of cooperation give a very great revenue or business to the banks like a KCB and NCB. And another thing I just want to share here is that for Huawei, because we provide the end-to-end solution for Safaricom, I think we've cooperated with Safaricom for around 10 years. To help them to build their capability, step by step from the phase 1 to phase 2, and then to the phase 3. And even for the recent 3 or 4 years, we cooperate with top banks, help them to build we call it, second digital core banking system, which is a very fantasy architecture, can help them to add their banking services on such kind of existing channel very quickly and agile. And I will share a little bit more information later. So when we look at something, as I mentioned, of the banks, the top banks that the banks they cooperate with Safaricom, something amazing for the recent years, I also would like to highlight here. So the first thing is that this is something like when the banks they cooperate with telco operators with Safaricom, this is Safaricom can take the role of the new digital channel to acquire the banks, to acquire new users for the banks very quickly, just for recent 3 or 4 years, from 8 million to 6 million, doubled. And the second thing I just want to highlight here is that, so because like Huawei, we have this kind of banks to build their back-end system, like a digital core banking system. So their new system is very stable. So here are some data, like before, the successful rate is around 70%, but after that is almost 100%. It's also very amazing. And also there's some business revenue, business growth very dramatically when the banks they cooperate with the Safaricom, the telco operators. And this is something what we've done for recent 3 years. And currently quite interesting for the top banks like in Kenya, KCB and NCBA. So they want to build their own digital channels themselves. That is, one hand, they want to cooperate with Safaricom, as Euro. And the second hand, actually, the banks, they want to build their digital channel. They want to fight against with Safaricom very direct, do some campaign or something. This case is also very interesting, I think. Okay, this is the first topic I just want to share. And the second topic, I would like to go direct to Huawei's capabilities and our solution on FSI to highlight that how and what we've done to help our banking customers. And first of all, this is the high level overall picture of Huawei's solutions and the capabilities. And although that when we talk about like digital transformation, and of course transformation is really popular, very hot word for banking industry, but the different bankers actually when they talk about digital transformation, actually they have different idea, different directions. Like some of the banks, they just want to go or focus on the retail. And some of them just want to go to mobile first, right? And some of the bank, they just want to build their capability of the open banking. They want to build their ecosystem or something. But basically, I think the banks, when they want to do something for digital transformation, they just want to provide much better agile and security service to the end users. And of course, based on that, the banks just want to know their customers very well and serve their customers well, customer-centric, right? And based on that, actually, Huawei will have 5 different areas of solutions. I just want to highlight them, one by one. The first one is mobile service. As I mentioned, the mobile service our super app is a kind of new trend and practices for banking industry. It's quite easy for the bank, especially I think for this region, for our region to acquire users very quickly and very easy, right? So this is the first solution from Huawei. And the second one is quite interesting. We call it like a new core banking system or new digital core banking system. So why? I just want to highlight something, in Kenya market, because as I mentioned, like Safaricom, they want to cooperate with top banks to have their banking services, saving and loan. And the first step for the banks, they just want to open their core banking's API to connect to mobile money system of the Safaricom. But the problem is that there are so many users from the Safaricom mobile money channel. So the current core banking system of the banks, they cannot support that. The TPS is, like tens, even hundreds, like kind of, big time. So it's very, it's very, common for the core banking system of the banks to crash for every week. Really disaster for the bank. And of course, based on that, so Huawei help the banks to build their kind of, we call it MSL, micro saving and loan system. Such kind of system is also part of the core banking system with a cloud native, fully cloud technology architecture, very fantasy architecture. So this is something we call it like a new core banking system or new digital core banking system. And the third solution in Huawei, we call it smart branches. This one I think is also much more interesting because it's also quite clear for nowadays, given the pressure of the cost. So the banks, so one hand, they want to shut down their currently existing physical branches. But on the other hand, actually the banks just want to make their current branches as a smart. So like a self-service kiosks, a KYC, know your customer something, very brilliant technology can leverage in such kind of branches. So this solution, we call it smart branches. And the next one is new infrastructure architecture. This is something like cloud. Cloud is just one of the very important parts of this solution. And also some other like new technology, software-defined data center, software-defined infrastructure and something. And the last one, we call it the new data lake platform. This is something like big data. And as I mentioned, like, know your customers of the banks is really important. And the data of the banks is very core asset of the bank. But the problem for the bank is that seems that there is so many methods to have a good understanding of your current existing users or customers. So such kind of application will fix this kind of problem. And of course, for all of the 5 areas, so we will cooperate with our partners to deliver an end-to-end solution to our banking clients. So this is our strategy for Huawei. So we call it a platform plus ecosystem, because for Huawei, we are really focused on the technology. We're a purely technology company. And almost half of our guys are engineers, R&D engineers. But when we also collaborate with some of the partners, especially for the application level based partners, to combine them as an end-to-end solution from very low-end hardware to the very top layer kind of software, deliver such kind of solution to our customers. And for the following slide, I will also share kind of a high level because of the time limitation. I only can share kind of high level one by one for the 5 solutions. And the first one is mobile first. Actually, just to prepare one slide for this. This is also a real case. In this case, from, as I mentioned earlier, the CMB, one of the most innovative bank in China. I just highlight some functions of the mobile app or super app of this bank. So the first one is, I think, very interesting. The first page is kind of like make appointment functions. So what is meaning? As I mentioned, like for this bank, like more than 90%. The accessing the engagement actually is coming from the mobile channel super app. But to be honest, I think there are still some kind of scenario you need to conduct from the physical branches. And the first function of the super app from the CMB, they support you. The super app support you to make appointment that when and which kind of transaction you want to do with which specific physical transaction, physical branches. And because some kind of transaction you need to go to the physical branches to finish, right? Conduct. So this is something we call it, like a O2O model. It's online into offline. And the second function we call it like this one. I think is quite interesting. The philosophy of the bank is quite direct. That is, you can download the super app, you can install, you can log in, even you have no account of this bank. Quite simple, because most of the scenario of the platform of the super app is the services from third party, and also based on the platform you can combine the payment platform from this super app and to your other kind of banking cards. It's quite easy, quite convenient for you to use such kind of super app. Even you do not you do not need to open account with CMB with a specific bank, right? And the next two pictures is kind of like the super app platform of this bank is quite flexible. Because there are many kind of subsidiary of the bank. That is, for each kind of subsidiary, you can develop your own ecosystem, like a shopping mall, traveling, right? You can develop your own ecosystem. The platform is quite flexible. And the last one also quite interesting. As I mentioned, this bank leveraged, like a cutting edge technology and AI. So that is for each kind of if you want to have some question, you query some transaction or business, basically there is a robot behind the system can serve you. And of course, you can change the robot service to the human being. That is easily for you to find your dedicated account manager to support you, give you some consulting or something. And based on such kind of super app platform, and this bank build their different kind of third-party services like a government. You can pay bill, utility, something, transport, and even you can book a taxi from the super app, healthcare, education, corporation, merchants, like a 7-Eleven, merchants. You can buy something very easily by using such kind of super app. This is the super app or mobile service. And the second one, as I mentioned, is the digital core banking system. So why today or nowadays is this one is so popular? Because if we look at something for the traditional core banking system, it's really kind of disaster for the banks. Why? Because the traditional core banking system with traditional architecture is very heavy. It's not easy for change, not agile, very cost, right? Cost is very high. And the most important thing is that because currently the competition, bank and fintechs, very huge. So all the bankers, they just want to, when they develop a new product, they just want to go to market very quickly. So the current traditional core banking system is heavy, cannot support that. So then the new digital core is coming. This is with very agile, the fully x86 server, and the fully distributed architecture. Cost is very, very good. very effective. And most important, it's very agile, quickly. When you want to develop some new product very quickly, just 1 or 2 days, it's finished, it's done, low TCO. And the second trend is that although the current existing traditional core banking is here, but basically step by step, the migration will start from here, the left side to the right side, but step by step, right? And this slide is kind of our cases, and we just share some cases in Kenya Top Bank. We've done the similar thing to help the banks build their the second digital core. So one hand connected to Safaricom, the digital channel. So on the other hand, actually this digital core is also like a digital mobile platform. And also based on the platform, the banks now, they're just building their mobile app or super app capability to distribute it to their own long tail users. And now we just on the roll out to the countries of the Eastern Africa, like Uganda, Tanzania, several countries. And the second topic is, like I mentioned, smart branches. And when we talk about smart branches, actually we are talking about the customer journey. Because when we talk about the precision of the physical branches, actually is totally different nowadays with several years ago. Because traditionally, the precision of the physical branches, actually they're kind of like a transaction center. Because when your customers go inside into their physical branches, the only thing for them is just withdraw money, deposit money, transaction is a bank, right? This is the role or position of the transaction center. And nowadays, totally different. Nowadays, when we talk about the physical branches, actually, the precision is like a service center. That is when the user they come inside into the physical branches, actually the account manager or the consultant will serve the customers, give them very good customer-centric experience, and try to ask them or make them stay inside into your physical branches much longer, sell more product or something. So this is totally different. So if you look at the Huawei's overall picture of the smart branches, I just want to give a quickly or high-level introduction of this, how that we can enable the customer journey. So even before the customer go inside into the physical branches, actually there will be like smart camera and catch this customer, and the camera is intelligent. We call it SDC, software defined camera, with like AI enabled inside, and it can connect to your internal database, identify who are the customers. And if the customers is really VIP users, actually there should be account manager here to take the VIP user to the corner. And this corner is kind of like the VIP room. And inside the VIP room, there will be a dedicated one-to-one expert service. And of course, expert is remotely. Location is remotely, not physically here, by leveraging the technology, video conference banking. And of course, all the consultants here will leverage some technology of cloud desktop, as well as here, maybe there is the whiteboard, give a welcome message or some production promotion, message for the end users. Of course, inside in the branches, there's some kind of service kiosk here to give self-service to the customers. And for the server room, will be the kind of package based. So all the IT equipment service here, and can be controlled, monitoring from remotely, like from your data center or something. And of course, for the link from the physical to the HQ to your data center, there also be some new technology like SD-WAN, they can leverage to connect to make the link very stable and very efficient. And inside the lobby, there will be the guest, Wi-Fi, like Wi-Fi 6 technology. And all the such kind of scenario, all technology already deployed cases, many cases based on Huawei practice. And for the following slide of the smart branches, I just highlight two different scenarios. The first scenario, as I mentioned, is the video banking, video conference banking. It's expert, right, remotely can give a dedicated service, one-to-one service. And actually quite interesting for this kind of scenario that the audience or the users can be external and internal. Like for internal, you can do the internal training, meeting, something. And for the external, different kind of like VIP users leveraged by this technology. And the next one, just want to highlight the self-service based kiosks. This is in our solution, we call it STM. It's a smart teller machine. It's like a machine, right? Self-service based. And their component or combination can be divided into different parts. And the left side here is kind of very basic part, the main one. And then you can connect, cooperate with some other parts. Like if you want to have the cash business, you need to use the cash cabinet. It can also support check as well as coin, right? Different cabinet and support a different business. And based on the current statistic, so just one machine, STM machine, can reduce around the workload for traditional counter, the retail business, 90%. And the cooperative banking business, 30%. And 1 to 4, just one machine with 4% of the teller. So this is quite popular. And also for this region, we have some project ongoing of smart branches. In the next solution of Huawei, we call it new infrastructure architecture, and the cloud is just one of the important one. So I just want to highlight some features of Huawei Cloud. Actually, Huawei Cloud technology, our strategy, we call it hybrid. That is, we can provide both public as well as on-premise. So our strategy is hybrid. And the second feature of Huawei is we are quite open. Actually, we are based on the open direction technology, open stack. We just add many brilliant feature on that. And the next one is that for Huawei Cloud technology, because we have even from the very low end, the chipset, from the low end chipset to the very high level of software. So our performance is very good. And of course, our cost is very effective. And of course, based on my understanding, because I have a lot of chance to have engagement discussion with the local bankers in different countries, different banks. So I think for most of the banks, their cloud strategy is kind of like a multi-cloud. For some of the application system, especially for the mission critical system, they just want to keep them inside in their own on-premise environment. But for some others, like Office, right, some non-mission critical, they would like to put it into the public cloud. Such kind of strategy, we call it a multi-cloud strategy. And for Huawei, one hand, we can combine them together. And the second one is that we can even cooperate with third parties like AWS, Azure, right? And for Huawei's public cloud, just use this one slide to give a high-level brief introduction. And from the year 2018, Huawei, we've landed our public cloud in Johannesburg from the year 2018. And I just read article from Safaricom just I think 1 month ago. So basically, and globally, so Huawei Cloud is ranked number 4 globally compared with other competitor, other vendors. So we move really quickly and fast. This is our technology of public cloud. In the last one, I just want to highlight something of the new data lake platform. This is something like big data. But when we talk about the big data technology, actually it depends, because based on Huawei's point of view, we think, especially for the banking industry, the banks, they need to consider two different types of the data. So the first type is kind of structure based. It's kind of RDBMS based. And the second one is kind of semi structured or unstructured. So that is for the banks, they need to combine the structured as well as unstructured or semi-structured together. So such kind of architecture, we call it converged data architecture. And for Huawei, actually for the two different data types, we have platform. Physically, we have two different types of the platform, but logically, from the point of view of the management, accessing, operation level, actually logically, the two different platforms, logically they are one. And also based on Huawei's practice, we can help our customers to reduce their cost when they do some migration, replacement or something for half, reduce the TCO. And secondly, because Huawei's technology is fully distributed, so we can support very large scale data volume, the PB level. And the last one is that the business performance, so averagely, is 30% increasement. And here is also kind of practices for data. So because when we talk about the big data platform, actually the first thing in the mind may be the scenario. And based on Huawei's practice, we think the three scenario is really important, or maybe it's quite common for the banks. So the first one we call it customer 360. This is something like a KYC, related with KYC, know your customer, right? Because nowadays, more and more banks, they realize they need to know the customer. They really need to promote something to the specific user or specific customer based on the specific behavior, right? So this kind of platform is very fundamental. Actually, based on Huawei practice, this is usually the first application based on the data platform, Customer 360. And the second one, we call it precision marketing. That is for the specific user based on the behavior, which kind of promotion, which kind of product is really interested in. This such kind of application we call it precision market. And the last one is real-time risk control. It's much more important, especially for the banks. This is a maybe gentlemen, ladies, I can share with you data in China banking market, the NPL, non-performance loan, the ratio. So the average NPL in China banking market is around 2%. It's quite low. Why? Because like such kind of application based on the big data platform is really powerful to support their business and reduce the NPL very low. Okay, so this is the solution of Huawei, the 5 different area of solutions and the cases. And this is the last slide. This is our footprint globally. And for now, for Huawei, and of course, I think, ladies and gentlemen, I believe all of you know about Huawei, but I'm not sure how much you know. So for Huawei's banking or FSI business, we've already have footprint of 30 years. So for now, we've worked with over 1,600 FSI companies, institutes, and almost half of the top 100 banks is customers, and many of them is strategic cooperation with Huawei. It's footprint globally, and for the region from South Africa, like ABSA, like FNB, we've cooperated already, and for Nigeria, like Zanish Bank, like FNB, several banks footprint there, and for Kenya, with top banks like KCB and NZB already customers of Huawei. And one more thing is DBS, because we know DBS is also mostly innovative bank globally. And the last year, actually, Huawei, we were awarded by DBS, the most innovative partner from DBS. And Huawei were the only one partner, we are the only one vendor who got such kind of award from DBS. Okay, gentlemen, ladies, this is my presentation today, and I'm not sure any concerns or questions from your side. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Chen, for that very, very interesting presentation. It looks like we do have a couple of questions that have come in. And I'd just like to take this opportunity as well to say to everybody in our audience today, do please jump in. This is your opportunity to ask Chen your questions. So do make sure that you send them in now. There's still time. But in the meantime, we do have a couple of questions from Sudhir Prabhu. He says, I understand we need to re-register some of our apps on the Huawei Play Store, especially on new handsets. Why are there such restrictions, and will this not kill the customer experience if he's upgrading to Huawei from, for example, Android?
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the question. But maybe I just give you some Huawei's business, because I don't think I'm the very right person to answer this question. So basically, Huawei has several different separate business. So we have the business, very traditional business, like the carrier, telecom operators, MTN, right? Vodacom. Right? And the second business is our enterprise business, like banking, government. Actually, me, myself, is from the business of the EBG, enterprise business. And then we'll have the business of the consumer business. It's our pad, mobile. Yeah, sorry, maybe I'm not the right person, but I will forward your question to our internal team for this. And if possible, I think if you leave your contact information, I will feedback you this answer from our CBG, consumer business. Thank you.
Thank you, Chen, for that. But I think our second question is in your field, so hopefully you can help Sudhir with this one. Does Huawei have a mobile framework for a super app, and is it linked to the data lake?
Okay. Yes. So first of all, we have a super app framework, and now there's some ongoing project, South Africa, as well as some banks from Kenya. This is our mobile super app framework based on H5 technology. And for the data lake, we have the fundamental platform. As I mentioned, we have two physical platforms. And based on the fundamental platform, we have solution partners can deliver some application level, like I mentioned, anti-fraud, risk control, or something. But for all of our Huawei's technology, we're quite open. We're really open. Actually, open direction is our philosophy. So yeah, for integration or something is not so it's quite easy. I think it's not difficult. Not sure I answer your question or not. This question.
Okay, thank you. And this is a final notice to say, do please submit your questions. There is still some time, but perhaps Chen, you could walk us through a few case studies of companies you've been working with in the African region to deliver some of these products.
Yes, actually, I think we've been this region for around many cases, and I just want to highlight some cases. Like like in South Africa, sorry, ladies and gentlemen, maybe I cannot share the specific customer name. One of the top bank strategically cooperate with Huawei to coverage on the technology area, to do the standardization of their current technology environment. And this is one case, of course, because the top bank in South Africa, their regional operation, regional business. So we cooperate for the whole region. This is one case. And a second case is for the Nigeria market. We are working for several banks and specific cases like because Huawei technology, as I mentioned, we are quite open. So now we are helping some of the banks to do the replacement of their core banking based environment, because for that environment, the cost is really high, especially for their traditional core banking system. This is one thing we've done in that market in Nigeria, as well as we deliver the new digital core banking system, some of the banks in Nigeria, as well as smart branches. And for Kenya market, this market, I think, is really advanced. I mean, for the inclusive finance or transformation market in Kenya is really advanced. So we help some of the banks to build their super app, their payment, and also build their capabilities based on the super app platform to build their ecosystem payment, ecosystem capabilities. And yeah, I just highlight some specific cases.
Okay, thank you. We've had another question come in. How does Huawei's approaches conquer financial institution or banks that deal with markets that have different challenges, especially in some countries in Africa where internet access and digitization is not as common as in others?
Okay. We think, based on Huawei's point of view and our practice, we think for the whole region of Africa, and the inclusive finance will be the future. But when you look inside into the players of the inclusive finance, actually there are many players. There are many, like I mentioned, carrier, telco operators, right? And fintechs, the banks, and some other like companies. But for banks, I think, based on my experience, because I got a lot of experience in talking with bankers for different countries, and most of the banks, they really want to do something very urgent and special. But different countries, they have different situation and thinking. I also just want to highlight something, like in South Africa. So based on Huawei's opinion, we think the two things need to fixed from the bank's point of view. The first one is that because the banking service is mainly focused on the city area. So this is the one thing that the banks cannot or could not extend their physical branches to the long tail user, especially for the village guys, right? This is one thing for the banks they need to fix, maybe in the following years or something. And the second thing is much more, I think, important. That is the kind of fees. So based on my understanding, the fees of the banks in South Africa is a kind of like a bottleneck to support the business growth of the banks. So the two things is really important for the banks to fix. So, and of course, for nowadays, we are helping some of the banks and also fintechs here. So try to help them to build the capabilities for the two things. The first one of Huawei, we have some of the banks to refresh their core banking system to make the current, the banking service very agile, like a digital loan. It's very important. And the second one, we help the local banks and fintechs to build their ecosystem. The ecosystem here I mentioned is not only, the ecosystem of online. It is something like offline, because it's quite popular for the South Africa, like the banks, they cooperate with a shopping mall, with a store, to build the capability of payment there or something. So this is two things. So for Huawei, we are doing. And for Kenya, I also want to highlight something. Like for Kenya, so because the online service is so popular, it's so advanced here. So the biggest problem of the banks, also two are very problems. The first one is that the local banks, how the local banks they do the combination with the Safaricom, right? And the second one is that how the local banks they build their super app capability, and based on that to build their online ecosystem to involve more and more third-party service based on that. And this is something Huawei now we are doing. Yeah. Okay, and for this question,
great.
just maybe stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. We have another question. Does Huawei have a standalone credit engine which can be easily configured by users without any dependency on their IT teams?
Okay, it's also a very good question. So basically, Huawei we have like a digital loan and like a kind of core banking system, but such kind of application layer is from our partner. And for such kind of application functions, they have functions of credit, but not so kind of comprehensive. They just leverage some like a scorecard, something to do some simple configuration. Of course, you do not need IT guys, the business guys. You can do it, no problem. But the function is not so enough. Right? But basically, based on our practice, for the banks, the credit system should be very standalone, very dedicated, comprehensive. And the new trend, new practice of such kind of credit system is based on big data, right? Because you need to acquire the data from different kind of sourcing system, and even some social network data. And based on such kind of huge data, you can build your credit system. And of course, I can share with you a very specific case from CMB, because we cooperate the CMB for also around 10 years. One case of CMB is that we want to apply credit card. A traditional way is that you just go to the physical branch to deliver a lot of paper or something, and then you go back to your home, just waiting there for 2 or 3 weeks, right? This is a traditional way. And the new way for CMB is that you go inside into the physical branches and you deliver some also online or offline, no problem, just the paper. And then you can get the result immediately that whether or not you can get a credit card. Because the backend system of the CMB based on big data, and they know you very well, and they already build the customer 360 of each kind of specific user. They know your credit something, and even when you log in to the CMB's mobile app, so you can get your loan very directly. So actually the credit of the loan number, you can see it from the landing page of the CMB app, because the banks know you very well. When you log into the platform, you can get a number, how many money, how many credit you can get a loan from the bank. And if you want to issue the request of the loan, just a click. Within 1 minute, you can get the money in your account very easily, quickly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chen. So that brings us to the end of today's session, as I'm afraid we have no more time to answer questions. Sorry, I've just clicked on the wrong thing, present. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Chen Zhentao for today's session. I hope you've all enjoyed it, and I think got a really good overview of the trends taking place and the way that Huawei may be able to assist your business in this kind of digital transformation. I'd like to finish today by inviting everybody present to please participate in the up and coming.
Sorry, Lisa, I'm not sure if there are any other questions I cannot answer online. Is possible for you to leave kind of offline address or something to deliver to me, and then I can give the feedback to.
That is absolutely possible. So anybody out there who wishes to follow up, who has further questions for Chen, or would like to be connected to the Huawei team, please do reach out at the end of this session, and we will make that connection for you and pass on your questions. So that's definitely possible. And then I'd like to just finish there by inviting everyone to join us at the upcoming Africa FinTech Festival. Mauritius Africa FinTech Hub is very excited to be this year hosting the AFN's Africa FinTech Festival. This is the largest Pan-African FinTech event. So do please join us on between the 13th to the 15th of October 2021, and you can find out more about the event, secure your tickets, check the agenda at africafintechfestival.org. So again, thank you so much for joining us today, Chen Zhentao. Thank you so much to Huawei, and thank you to all of our participants today for your time and interest in this session. And we look forward to welcoming you to future sessions at the Mauritius Africa FinTech Hub. Thank you.